All right, folks, we are good to go. I apologize for being a few minutes late. I was having an issue with... apparently, I forgot to set one of my settings last night when I actually made the Q&A page, so I had to redo that and start over again. But it should be fine. While that's loading up on the page, I'm going to take this moment. Also, everything's slower with my wrist guards. Actually, yeah, it's going to be rather aggravating to do the mouse with like this, but I'll try my best. Let's see. Let's make sure it actually hasn't shown up on your screen yet, so I hope everything's okay. Let me know when you guys see me and hear me, because this should have started by now. Why is it not? Let's take a look here. It could just be that that page I'm looking at is frozen. There we go. Cool.
Started.
There you go. I guess you guys can see me and hear me. Alrighty. Thank you so much, guys, for your patience on that. I don't know why it took so long for that to pop up, but I was talking for about 3 minutes before it actually started. But my name is Nick, the Support King of Brawl. This is our weekly Q&A. You give me questions, I give you answers. We all try to leave with our sanity intact, but I promise nothing. Quick channel news. Of course, my output wasn't great this week. I have like 50% of 2 reviews in the hopper. Like, I already did the intros and outros. It's just the most aggravating part is the overview, because I have to write a script and all that stuff. So that's taking a little bit longer. But I'm hoping to work on it after this. I have another preview I have to work on that I'm already a little bit late on. Sort of. The campaign hasn't launched yet, but you'll be seeing that. There's another preview that's already done that as soon as I post at least one more review, I'm going to make that one live. And then what else? I have gaming tonight, so that's going to have to take priority in a few hours. And yeah, that's that. So thank you for your patience on that. As usual, you are the most patient audience in the world. But how are all of you doing? I hope you're doing fantastic this weekend so far. Politics is really depressing, and I'm trying to take my mind off of it. Most of that time is me trying to get my mind off it is with Marvel Future Fight, which I've spent an insane amount of time on, but I'm doing very well in it, so I don't feel bad. It's very fun. Okay, let's get straight to the questions, lest people have to wait for me anymore in my long rambling. It seems like Fantasy Flight Games and Games Workshop split has finally been revealed. That is correct. I posted about that yesterday. I'm sure I would be asked about this a bajillion times. Moderator Chris here is actually rescuing some of the questions that were eaten by YouTube annoyingly. I don't know why. Not that Chris is doing that in an annoying fashion. I mean, what YouTube is doing is very annoying. I don't know why it eats my questions, but Bane Care asks, any Fantasy Flight Games, Games Workshop games you wanted but missed out on? I looked into Chaos in the Old World and it seemed neat, but was already sold out, and now I'm sad. Well, I actually have my copy that was one of the very first board games I ever purchased, and I'm glad that I did, because it's a fantastic game. And now I'm really glad that I did, apparently. Yeah, I was talking to someone last night, or I was commenting on Facebook, the idea here, theoretically, is that if these are good enough games and Fantasy Flight Games thinks that they have a good audience for them, and by the way, they are no stranger to re-releasing games, so I'm sure they will, how are they going to do it? I mean, if they have the rights to the game mechanisms and components, or, the idea of it, then they could re-release it and retheme it. But what would you retheme Chaos in the Old World into? They tend to do all their fantasy games, and that was based off Warhammer Fantasy. They tend to put them all into Terranoth, which is the Descent shared universe, and I'm just like, who does anyone even know what the dark gods of Terranoth are or care? I mean, that's the thing, though. The theme of Chaos in the Old World is very important to it, despite the fact that the mechanisms are awesome too. So, I didn't care about... So I never played Rex. I owned it and traded it away before I could play it. But I was okay with the idea of it because I had no attachment to Dune, which was the original license of the game that Fantasy Flight Games took and rethemed into their Twilight Imperium universe. So I was fine with that, but I know that some people were upset. Like, okay, it's fine, but it's not Dune, and that's what it should be. So now I kind of feel like I would be in those shoes. I would know what that feels like. the bigger thing, and I'm just going to rant about this for a little bit because I know these are going to be questions anyways, right? So I'll try to knock it all out at once. The bigger thing that I am upset about, two things. One would be Forbidden Stars, no expansions. Now, I think Forbidden Stars is a great game on its own, and it's fine. If you have a copy, if you're getting a copy in light of this news, I think you're going to be happy. It'll be sad that you can't get more factions, but it's a complete game, right? It feels like a complete game. It just would have been nice to have more. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but I'm not heartbroken about it. I'm not getting rid of my copy because it's useless or anything like that. Far from it. On the other hand, Warhammer Adventure or Warhammer Quest Adventure card game is a third of a game. That game is fun and I like it, and I was looking forward to more expansions because it needs expansion content. It desperately needs expansion content. It's made to have expansion content, and that ain't happening. Now, I'm sure if there's not already, there will be fan content made for it, and more power to those people. I'm just not the type to do that type of thing in most cases. So, I don't know about my future with that game. I might hold on to it just because it might become a collector's item, and there is the possibility that, again, Fantasy Flight Games will retheme it to make more content, and the existing content will, while it will stick out like a sore thumb, still be usable. I don't know. But that's the only sad part for me. I had mentioned on Facebook that if I was someone who had bought heavily into Warhammer 40k Conquest, which was their living card game version of Warhammer 40k, I'd be furious because that's still a relatively young game, and they were doing organized play, and even though it's not a collectible game where you're spending thousands of dollars, you still need to buy, like, I think it's 2 to 4 boxes of the core game to have a complete set of those cards. Then you need to buy like 2 or 3 sets of the expansion packs that come out, that type of thing. So, I don't know. I'd be upset if, and it's just done. It's going to be done within like a few months or something like that. Luckily, they had already finished a couple of years ago Warhammer Invasion, which was their Warhammer Fantasy living card game. Those people, although, again, if you want any of this stuff, they're not going to be reprinting it. So I would highly suggest that you get whatever you want. Now, I'm always very cautious about this. I don't want people to spend money they wouldn't have already been wanting to spend. But if you were already just like kind of holding off, like, oh, I'll get it someday because it'll always be available, now might be the time. I don't like coercing people to spend money, but I'm telling you, they're going to be hard to get, if not already, very soon. That news was actually trending on Facebook. Now, the thing is, people who can see that trending on Facebook are people who are inclined to like games. That's the way that Facebook's algorithm works. It gives you the news stories you're most likely to want to see. But even so, that means that there's a lot of people talking about it, so that stuff's going to sell out quick. Moving on. Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for your kind comments. It's not really a question, so I won't read it. But here, you do have a question. I recently finished watching Netflix Marvel original Jessica Jones and really enjoyed it. So did I. Any recommendation for another one to watch? I'm considering Daredevil, maybe. Well, yes, Daredevil is very good. And the only thing I caution people on with Daredevil, brace yourself when you get to the last 3 episodes of both seasons, because they do not know how to end a season to save their life. The endings, especially the final episode of both seasons, are awful. Leading up to that, however, are 2 very, very, very fine seasons of shows. Daredevil is a very good show overall. It just ends badly each season. But if you're prepared for that, and who knows, your mileage might vary, I think you'll be fine. Luke Cage is coming out very soon. I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to have my own superhero TV show, which I'll give you more details on very soon. I think this coming weekend will be episode 0 of that. So we'll talk more about that at the time. No need to. In fact, the whole reason why I'm doing it is so that I won't clog up the comments clog up my Q&As with superhero show questions. But you can still ask me about it. But that's the whole purpose of it. Someone in the audience had the awesome idea, and I'm running with it. But otherwise, aside from Daredevil, what would I recommend? I mean, I watch all the CW shows, and they're not nearly as dark because they're on primetime network TV, and have to appeal to more of a family-oriented audience at sometimes. But I like Arrow. It has its ups. Arrow and Flash have their ups and downs, but overall they're still very fun. I'm a big fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, that show gets a lot of shit, and maybe it should. The first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was pretty mediocre at best until, like, the last 5 or 6 episodes, and then it got amazing because it tied into the Winter Soldier at the time, the movie Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And since then, I feel like it's had a pretty good consistent quality. It's sometimes missed, but I think more often it hits. It's just that most people have given up on the show, and that's sad to me because it's got a good cast. I like I can't remember his name. Clark Gregg? Something like that. The guy who plays Coulson's really good. The woman who plays Sky, I'll say for now, that name. She's very, very good, very charismatic. She's got a great she's a great leading heroine of the show, so I'm into it. Nick, why don't American publishers use the U.S. playing card company to print card games? Why do they choose to import from Panda? For the same reason that, even putting board gaming aside, so many American companies get their products and components and things from China because it's just cheaper. Their labor is cheaper. Panda is in China, correct? And I don't want to be ignorant to this fact. I don't know I know Panda game manufacturing. They're in China, right? Or are they in another place in Asia? Please, I don't want to be ignorant on that. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But either way, any company from Asia is going to have cheaper labor and just cheaper pricing overall, mainly because of that reason. And look, I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's a terrible thing because I feel like no matter what country you live in, you should be paid a good, decent wage, even if it means that our prices go up a little bit. And I say that as someone who's potentially or perpetually broke, okay? I'm not saying that from a position of privilege. But that is the reason. It's just the way that it is. And I would love it if game manufacturers stuck to home, but that doesn't seem to be a possibility when you're talking about anything more than like a small set of cards. You know, even Cards Against Humanity prints their stuff in China. They do it proudly. They actually make sure that the plant that they use, that their people there are taken care of. Actually, for one of the holiday week-long holiday things that they did, I don't remember if it was this past year or the year before, one of the days they actually sent a letter to everyone who took part in the holiday thing saying, we just want to show you the people that make our game in China. And they included photographs. They said they bought out the plant for a whole week or a weekend or something and said, everyone go. You have the day off, go spend time with your families. And they showed that time. So that they tried to take care of the people that are there. And I think that Panda Manufacturing has a good enough reputation that they probably take care of their workers too. But it's just the way it is. There's a lot of things in this world have to change before we stop using other countries for our cheap labor and in my opinion, abusing them for their cheap labor. Yeah, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is that way. Look at Apple. I'm no Apple fan, but they have a huge following. They're one of the biggest corporations in the world, if not the biggest. And there are huge problems with the way that they have their phones built in China. Are we too quick to accuse people of being racist nowadays? I think in some cases, yes. I think this is a common thing where it's a lot of times people will use the racism card or the sexist card to get themselves out of an argument. You see this on the internet all the time. Having said that, and I don't know exactly what you're referring to, like if you're referring to a specific incident or not, you're leaving that kind of vague for me. There certainly is more racism still alive and well in this country that people are not willing to face up to and acknowledge. And I can think of a couple of things that are sort of endemic of this. One of them is the rise of Donald Trump. And yes, listen, I'm fully aware that there is a not insignificant, probably a large portion of his base who is basing their vote on the economy, who just pure outrage with the establishment, and a lot of reasons that I may not consider them legitimate necessarily. In some cases I might, but are not racist. They're not coming from a racist place. There are a few black supporters of Donald Trump, okay? Very small. Same thing with Latinos, although there's a few more of those. The Cuban guy who does deliveries for my job from one of our vendors is a hardcore Trump supporter and is trying to talk me into supporting him. It ain't going to happen. So there is that. However, there is a larger, I believe, proportion of people, white people, backing Donald Trump, a very large portion, who are into it for the racism, pretty much. I mean, that's where everything else stems from, especially with regards to Latinos in the country, whether they're here legally or illegally. I don't think they really make that distinction in their minds, although they'll tell reporters that they do. So while I do think that it is important to not throw out these descriptors, racist, sexist, so much that they lose their meaning, and that's a huge problem. I know that it is. You have to at least call them out when they make it blatantly obvious. And when there are white supremacists and alt-right people like the guys from Breitbart supporting Trump, I think you're pretty qualified to say there's a huge racist component going on there. Oh, by the way, with regards to going back to that question that Nathaniel had about why not use the U.S. playing card company. I don't actually know a lot about that company in particular, but Chris down here says that they primarily only produce playing cards. It's not just the name. So that's why I was saying maybe there's companies over here like them who would be very good at producing just small card games, not so much big board-heavy, miniature-heavy games. Is Z Garcia, as ultra-religious and conservative as the other Dice Tower guys? I have no earthly idea. Someone else asked me about this, and I don't know, people might think I have insight, but Z and I got along very well when I was still with the Dice Tower and going down to their meetups and things, but I don't know very much about the guy. I never had time to spend with him alone or anything like that to have a conversation with him. He doesn't seem to be. I actually told the other person who asked me about this, if you told me he was super religious, or if you told me he was an atheist, I would probably believe you in either case if I thought you were a reputable person, because I don't know. It could be either way. He could just be someone who's very quiet about his beliefs. Do I think that should have a bearing on whether you are a fan of his or the rest of the network? Not necessarily. You're only there to watch board game reviews, right? So it shouldn't necessarily matter unless they are making that a prominent part of their review, and I don't think that Z has ever done that. From when I haven't watched any of their videos in over a year, but from the time when I did, it didn't seem like a big deal. Other people on the network do make faith a huge part of their reviews, and that's more problematic for me, but maybe not so much for you. So I would say don't worry too much about it one way or the other. If you find out randomly one day that his views line up with yours, fantastic. If not, go on with your life. If you could keep one, would it be Eldritch Horror or Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition? Eldritch Horror. I have too much for it at this point, and while I really love the integration of the app in Mansions of Madness, you have to kind of wait for the stories to trickle out unless you make your own somehow, and they just have a free-form version of the app. Whereas Eldritch Horror, even though it's not as thematic and as immersive, I know that I can just keep playing that game over and over again, and for the most part have different experiences each time. So for now, Eldritch Horror. There's a big debate happening in the comments about this panda manufacturing thing. Fine. That's fine, guys. Of the games based on the Games Workshop license that FFG is losing, are there any that you will truly miss? Which ones do you think Games Workshop will try to continue printing or redesigning in the future? Well, as I mentioned already, the only ones I'm upset about are that we're not going to get any more expansions for Warhammer Adventure card game, Warhammer Quest Adventure card game, it's an annoying name, and Forbidden Stars. I'm not really upset about any of the other ones. I'm fine. I never played Blood Bowl Team Manager. I don't really care. I would have played it by now if I wanted to. What else? I never bothered with the LCGs. Space Hulk, Death Angel. I probably could still find a copy of that. That's been lingering around. It never really catch fire, and I always used to see it in math trades when I still did those all the time. But I'm not dying to get it, so I'll be fine. But what I think Games Workshop will try to continue printing or redesigning in the future. That's an interesting question. That's the problem, though, right? And I would love to see. This is the thing. When Fantasy Flight made their announcement yesterday, they put a frequently asked questions together with it. None of that, nothing that they posted yesterday answered all the most burning questions. Why did this happen? Was it one-sided? Did you really want to do this? Did Games Workshop really want to do this? Did Asmodee North America, the new parent company of Fantasy Flight in North America, have anything to do with this? Was it their influence that made this happen? Did they want you to break ties with any other large corporation, especially a competitor to Asmodee? Who knows? We don't know the answers to any of these, but another burning question would be, and there's several things mixed up with this. First off, is Games Workshop going to continue to produce any of these titles, and can they? Because while they may own the license for the property, for the actual storylines and characters and all these different types of things, Fantasy Flight may own the rights to the actual game design, in which case they are the only ones that can keep producing them. They just can't use the Games Workshop properties. Or is it open season for Games Workshop? I don't know. If that's the case, they would be foolish not to do a super nice version of Chaos in the Old World. Because that's a well-regarded game, a good selling game. I don't know. But I can't see them doing Warhammer Adventure Quest, the card game. God, I hate the name of that game. I can't see them doing the card game because it's a card game. You know? They have the actual Warhammer Quest license, so they'll just keep doing that. Have you ever played Gloom? It's got a dark humor to it, but it is a take-that game. We all enjoyed it. If you have you played any of the expansions like Cthulhu Gloom? I have played Gloom very early on in the lifespan of my board gaming group before I ever had a channel. Someone brought it. I played it. I didn't like it. Now, I enjoyed the quirkiness of it. I liked the idea of it because it's a neat idea. They got like the see-through cards that you put templates on cards, and you have to tell a story about how someone dies. Some weird thing like that. So I was like, it's creative and unique. Very, for me, boring overall. I didn't get into it. And yes, it is a take-that card game. It's very simple. In that regard, because of its uniqueness and because it is very simple, I would sooner play that game with new people or with kids than like any number of other take-that games. But for me personally, it's just not my bag. When will you start your top 100? My God. Is that coming up soon? Oh, my goodness. It feels like I just did that. That's a lot of work. But they're pretty easy to do, though. Anytime I don't have to do an overview, it's a video I can get out easily. That's why the unboxings go up quicker than everything else. The top 10s are just me spouting off at the mouth, so I don't know. When will I do that? I guess I do it in October, November. November might be a better time to do it. Well, it'll be within the next couple of months. I do want to keep it consistently year by year, within like a week of each other. Well, I hate this disgusting cut I've got on my chin. It really makes me look like I'm a meth addict. More 3 a.m. uploads, please. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I might die, but of course I'm going to keep doing those. What happened to the wrist? Did you sprain it unboxing the evil Secret Hitler game of evilness? That is exactly what happened. No, I've either sprained it doing something. Like, I lift boxes at work all the time, but I do it so often that I don't think about it. And it's possible I sprained it and didn't think about it at the time, but then later on it started to bug me. And I can't put incident to occurrence. But it's also possible it's carpal tunnel. Yeah, the thing about it is, so here at home, I have a gel pad that I'm embarrassed to show you that I use to put when I'm using my mouse. But at work, I don't. And regardless of whether you're using some sort of rest or not, I just use my mouse and my keyboard constantly at work, at home, working on videos, typing stuff up on the internet and arguing with people. So I think it's probably overdue that I would get carpal tunnel, quite frankly. So it's possible that it's that. It's getting a little bit better, but every time I take my wrist guard off and I twist my wrist in the wrong way, it just comes back full force. So I try to keep it in this as long as possible until it really starts to bother me. So because it gets hot, and when I take it off, there's like lines and creases all over my arm. It's disturbing. Thank you very much, Philip, for your kind comments. Did you really get that much grief for reviewing Secret Hitler? I did. I mean, well, a few people. There's always a vocal minority of people. And that video, right off the bat, had like more downvotes than any other video I've posted in a long time. And what, like, usually that only happens when I do like a bad review of something and people just shit all over it. Like, what do you know, asshole? But this was just an unboxing. So I told someone in the comments on the video, like, they were like, why does it have so many downvotes? And I said, well, it's the heady mixture of the Cards Against Humanity team who developed it and their reputation, Hitler, and an unboxing video. Those three things are not great together. And I guess I should have realized that, but I genuinely put that video up like innocently, like, this is whatever, I'll just do this thing. I didn't realize people would be that upset about it. You gotta remember this, the Secret Hitler Kickstarter project made over $1 million and had like over 30,000 backers. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, it can't be that offensive, right? No, there's like a very small contingent of very PC people who were like, Hitler, you're glorifying Hitler. You practically walked those poor people into the gas chamber yourself. And I mean, but seriously, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But one person that emailed me was like, how could you condone how can you condone talking so frivolously about people being murdered, by the millions? And I'm like, how do you even respond to that? How do you respond to that without sounding like a crazy man? Because it's someone spouting insanity asking you to come back with a sane answer. I was just like, I took him to task for it. I said, for God's sakes, it's a game. They didn't even use any person's actual likeness in the game. I don't think the liberal cards in that game are based off of people. They're just depictions. The evil people in the game, well, they are evil, are lizard people. That's what they made them look like. And they use a retro art style that looks nothing like realism. And they don't talk about it at all. In fact, they put a comic book into the box. You can see it if you watch my unboxing. I flipped through it really quick. That describes the actual rise of the Reich in Germany and how awful it was and how it was allowed to happen. And that's the point of the game. They don't pretend that the game is like trying to make this large social statement. It's a game that's made to have fun, but at the same time, you can learn something about how easy it is to manipulate people into passing horrific laws. But all that is lost on people who just think that I'm glorifying Hitler, which is amazing. And what's that law? Is that Poe's law, where as soon as you start accusing someone of being Hitler or endorsing Hitler, you've lost the argument? Well, yeah, I think we're way past that. Hey, Nick, I saw your comment on TYT. Wow, I feel like I'm being stalked. No, I use my actual name. Well, not my actual name, but the channel name as my username in other places, just to represent, I guess. So you were 100% right about Jimmy Dore. I just started watching TYT. Was he always like this? Well, here's the thing about Jimmy Dore. I love Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore, a member of the Young Turks. He has his own show on the network. Love that guy. Smart. He's funny. He's very quick-witted, and he cares a lot about progressive values, so I cannot be too angry with him. However, once Bernie lost the primary, and once this whole thing with the DNC emails and how they were leaked came out and came to light, he went crazy. And I can understand to a small degree, and I also admire the fact that he stuck to his guns and hasn't changed his opinion on these things. However, he's buying into... I see a lot of this with the left, the very, very, very far left progressives who were following Bernie. So many of them have bought into the whole conspiracy theory thing of, they call her Killery, they call her Shillery, that, like, this whole email thing has been overblown, but they think it's like the smoking gun that proves that she's a monster, that she's actually murdered people, the people, like her opponents. I mean, they're buying into it, and they're almost indecipherable. They're indiscernible, I should say, from Trump supporters in some regards. And I think Jimmy Dore is fueling that fire, and I'm sad about that. And I want this whole thing to be over for so many reasons, but that's one of them. I want the election to be over so Jimmy can go back to being someone I admire. What do you think of Tiny Epic Galaxy's Tiny Epic Galaxies thinking about backing the Kickstarter. Oh, I guess they have like an expansion out or something, right? I don't really care for any of those Tiny Epic games. The only one I ever bothered to really play and review was Tiny Epic Defenders, and it was fine. It was just fine. And the other ones I have no interest in. It's just not for me. I don't buy into that. I don't really understand the phenomena of these Kickstarters. Now they become like these big communal, like, everybody's backing the game. Well, I know why. At the core of it, they're super cheap. And that's the magic word. If any of these games were just Epic Galaxies or Epic Defenders, and they were $40 to $50 a piece, I don't think you would see what's going on there. Especially when you consider the fact that when I was still into math trades and the first couple of games had come out already, Tiny Epic Kingdoms and Tiny Epic Defenders, those things were flooding the math trades. People could not wait to get rid of them. They're not games that people keep long term. They're not like they're not solid hit games. They're very, very mediocre games relying on a gimmick. And that doesn't mean that there aren't people who really, really enjoy them. I just think that by and large, they're a gimmick thing. But for the price, I would say if you're on the fence about it, just do it. Unless you're really hard up for cash, and I totally understand that. I'm there with you. I've spent way too much money on app games lately. But I would say for the price, just do it and see what happens. And see if it's right for you. You might be one of those people who becomes a hardcore fan. Or you might be like me and you're just like, eh. Nick, if board games and video games disappeared from the face of the earth, what activities would occupy your free time? Anime, watching TV and movies. I've always wanted to become more of a cinephile than I am right now, so there you go. The Mystery says, I'm going to refrain from obvious wrist jokes now. Wait. Sorry, I kind of lost track with your comment and what you were saying because I was too busy thinking about all the times I was masturbating in the last week. Do you believe board game cafes can be big in America like Snakes and Lattes? No, not right now. Soon. The thing about Snakes and Lattes, and by the way, I'm sure there are places like that in the U.S. right now, and I'm sure the Snakes and Lattes is actually probably unusual for Canada, or Toronto in particular. Because there's just not a huge market for it right now, but I think that there will be soon, and it's more likely that stuff like that will happen. But I also think that Snakes and Lattes, based on what I've seen of them, offer themselves, they're like a really good cafe. Like they offer pie and lots of food and really good coffee, and they're a great place for people to meet, and they probably have a very good location too, because it's location, location, location. I know that is the most important thing, as Mel Brooks told me. And so those things together mean that they've already got an entrenched user base, and then they offer board games, and then it goes up to the next level and brings in even more clientele. But I think that you need to start off at that baseline, because I'll tell you this, there was a store, and listen, you can never call out one particular thing as like endemic of an entire situation, country, or worldwide, but just as an example, I think this is a telling example, there is a store near here that was called GXC, Geek Extreme Entertainment. They bounced around to a couple different locations before finally settling on an old warehouse. And their primary, it was not a very good warehouse. They didn't have a lot of stuff. They didn't have a very good selection of any products to buy. But their primary selling point was for Magic the Gathering players and for any board gamer that wanted to. You had a huge open space. Tons of tables. Lots of room to spread out. No one was bumping into each other. You had tons of private rooms around it that you could go into. The role-playing gamers could go into those rooms, and we did. That's one of the things that I did there for a while. This is like kind of pre-channel and in the early days of the channel when I had more free time. But that was their primary value, right? They're out of business now, and they probably should have gone out of business much sooner than they did. Why? Because they didn't have anything else. They were not selling anything. They were only offering the space. People bought snacks when they could, but I'm talking about snacks like, I'm bleeding. Like cans of soda and prepackaged snacks, which is all they were licensed to have. So you need to have all these things together, and I think that that's going to be a more difficult thing for other stores in the country to do, to have a full stock of food, or for places, maybe places that are bars to have liquor licenses. I mean, there are places like that, but they don't really offer board gaming that much, or an open space for that. So, but that is the future. It's just not here yet. Hold on a second. I feel like I missed the first part of Philip's question here. Oh, okay, it's referring back to Clank. I also watched Rado's review, and he complained about the lack of deck thinners. How do you feel about that? Does that weaken the deck building part of the game? Well, yes. So what he means by deck thinners are... I didn't watch Rado's review. I'm just referring to your comment. What he means by deck thinners are cards that destroy other cards or get them out. And yeah, that's a concern in any game that doesn't have those, because that's a core element of deck building, I feel. But I think this goes back to what I said in my review, where it's like the game really... The deck building part of it, just when you think it's starting to amp up and to the point where you're going to really want to get those deck thinners going, the game enters its final stage where you're just trying to run out as quickly as possible. Still, yes, I think it would be cool to have those types of things, but I think the game would have to be a little bit longer before I consider that to be a huge negative. Obviously, Rado's mileage on that varied, but that's how I felt. It wasn't on my radar of like big complaints to mention. Someone on Board Game Geek claims that Forbidden Stars was owned wholly by Games Workshop. It might just need a redesign to publish by Games Workshop. I don't know. I mean, what does he... I'd like to know what the guy's credentials are. I don't necessarily think he's not telling the truth, but I don't think he's necessarily telling the truth either. If Trump wins and Republicans control a majority of state government legislators, Supreme Court for maybe decades, Senate, House, and presidency, what do you think? Voting for Clinton, right? Of course I am, but... Look, it's a really, really depressing time. I don't like turning on the news right now. I'm a political junkie by nature since the Clinton-Gore election. And I am very, very upset about what's going on. I'm fine with Hillary Clinton as president. I think much of the stories about her have been overblown. And yet, no doubt, because of her perception amongst people, she's a terrible candidate. It's just the way that it is, whether it's right or wrong. I don't think it's right. I just think it is what it is, and we're stuck with it. But because of that, she's losing. I mean, the momentum is now Trump's, and that is completely miserable. To think that we are going to have to worry about gay marriage being overturned, abortion rights being overturned, affirmative action, rights being stripped away from immigrants. I mean, this is a dark, dark time. I feel like Trump is a fucking moron. He's a complete moron. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He inherited money from his father and has done nothing but run businesses into the ground, using whatever funds he got from those to fund another business that gets run into the ground, and karate maneuvers. And over and over and over again, he's a moron. He's a complete moron who has fumbled his way into money. And he doesn't really believe 90% of what he says. He just knows that the Republican Party is full of wackos who he can use to gain power. Okay? Having said that, once he gets into the office, he doesn't care about... I mean, he may not actually care about defunding Planned Parenthood, for example, but he'll do it because his handlers will say, you should do this. He will be... you thought George W. Bush was a puppet? Just wait. You haven't seen anything yet. You've seen nothing yet. We are entering a super dark time, and it's very sad. And that's the thing, too, is like even if Trump loses and Clinton wins, and I really, really mercifully hope that that's the case, we still may only have control of the Senate. Odds are we're going to take back the Senate. I don't know if that's the case, especially if things keep going like they are. But even if we do that, I think someone ran the stats. There's like no chance right now with the numbers as they are, percentages of polling for candidates who are running. There's no chance we're taking back the House. So there's still going to be gridlock in Congress. As you mentioned, people ignore this, but it's very important. State legislatures across the country, including the governorships, are predominantly Republican. Okay? This country has become, since 9/11, has gotten into a very, very, very dark place for all of the victories that we've had. But those victories can be stripped away in a heartbeat. And that's why I have no patience or tolerance for the alt-left in this country who are just frothing at the mouth about Hillary's stealing the election. No. The DNC wanted their candidate to win. They're a private organization who does take taxpayer monies, but they're still a private organization. They still want their candidate to win. And that's what they tried to do. I don't like it. I wanted Bernie to win, but that's the way it is. And to sell this country down the river to make a point is sickening. Cool Me or Not is crap with its vague announcements about the others. I'm not even sure what you're speaking about, actually, Abigail. But there are big news stories about the others coming out? I don't know. Have you ever thought about setting up your cameras and doing a show the same way Tabletop does during your Saturday game nights? I know you said you've done that once or twice. Well, I did that for like the gaming marathons we did. I don't know. The thing is, there's some people in my group who are, I know for sure, are uncomfortable with the idea of being filmed the whole time. People act differently when they're filmed. It's also a time sink of like me having to make sure the camera's right, me having to make look at by nature, I want to look at the comments and see what people are saying. I need to make sure people aren't saying super incendiary things and like racist Harambe jokes. Okay, and it's just a big distraction. So I save that for special events. And plus, like, I need to make sure. I just need to focus on the game. These are the games now that I'm going to review, so I need to focus on them and make sure I'm doing them right. So sadly, I don't think it's going to happen too often. Hey Nick, I just saw your review of Clank, and I'm wondering if you think there's enough variety in the cards, or if you find them to be very basic and lack complexity, like Dominion Ascension style base game. Well, I don't think that they're super complex for sure, but by very nature of the fact that you have 3 different types of currency in the game, there's a bunch of different magic items, they interact differently with each other. I would say they're at least on the level of Dominion, but probably more so, and more complicated than Ascension. Ascension's not a very complicated game. By any means, or complex. So yeah, I would say that they're not too low on the complexity level, but it's still very accessible game. I think I might have even mentioned in my review that the one thing I hope that it gets is more expansion content, and I think it can easily get expansion content. It's just that kind of game. You can get extra boards for the game. That'll be very cool. So I'm excited about the future of it. I think they started off very good, strong, and I think that they'll continue to get strong if they support it. I don't think that they signed a licensing deal with Games Workshop, so we probably don't have to worry about that. Have you seen the Board with Life series on YouTube? I know of it. I know a lot of people enjoy it. I'm not particularly interested in it personally. Ant-Man is the best, Abigail says. Do you mean for Marvel Future Fight? A lot of people do love him in that game. He's a top 10 character, I think. But I agree. I think Ant-Man's a very good movie. That's the only way I really know Ant-Man. I thought it was a surprisingly good movie, even though it was kind of like... It did a lot worse than a lot of other Marvel movies, both critically and commercially. Do you know of any plans for Marvel Legendary Defenders to line up with the Netflix release? I don't know, but that'd be smart, right? I feel like Captain America Civil War expansion for Legendary came out just like around maybe about a month earlier than Civil War, which was convenient. Are you surprised at the reaction to your unboxing of Secret Hitler? I was, and then in hindsight I realized I shouldn't be because this is the internet. Please stop hitting the mic. I'm sorry. I'm actually hitting the table and it's hitting the mic. I can't really help it. Sorry. I do need a name for the superhero TV show. I was just going to call it the Superhero Roundup or something, but if you guys can think of something clever that's not, like, too punny. Actually, no, puns would be great. 2014 had a lot of strong games come out. 2015 did as well. 2016 seems to be a little weak. What do you think? Am I missing something? It's possible you just haven't played all the games, and I haven't played all the games either. But I've been very impressed with some of the games I've played. I don't think it's lacking for quantity of releases, but quantity doesn't always equal quality. I don't know. I think it's possible we're having an off year, but I would also argue that this off year is better than most years of any other type of genre or medium of entertainment because it's still very good. We have a plethora of selections. There's a lot of very good games, if not amazing games. So I'm a little hesitant to say that this year was too weak. Sorry, I know I'm rubbing my nose too much. What's the best IP for Fantasy Flight Games to get to replace Warhammer 40k? Well, they already have Star Wars. It's kind of hard to argue as far as IPs go. But, let's see. I mean, none of the things I like that are really obscure would make it, but... They should get War Machine. Well, yeah, Privateer Press makes their own board games, but what if they didn't? They could do the War Machine games. Every Kickstarter project needs Jamie from the Conan Kickstarter project. I don't know. Is he good? I have no idea who that is. I mean, I actually backed the Conan project, but I don't keep up with it. My brother-in-law is Vietnamese and is voting for Trump. Well, there you go. You would think. I mean, look, the global community, its polls and stats have shown, hate Trump as a whole, but that's not everybody. It's not all-inclusive. Some people want a strong man. They want a strong man. They want someone to come in and say, this is what we're doing. And they don't want details. They just want someone to take care of it. That's all they care about. Scythe is going to cost $80. I've been wanting to get it, but should I wait for the price to drop, or is it worth it at that price with plenty of replay value? I'm always hesitant to talk about the worth of a game, because the worth of the game is dictated by how fun it is going to be for you. So $80 seems like a lot, but if you play the game first and you really enjoy it, and you know you're going to get a lot of plays out of it, $80 seems like a drop in the bucket, right? Because I'd rather spend twice as much on a game that I'm going to play tons than $40 on a game that I'm going to pull out every now and then, right? So worth is very relative. I would say, as far as like the components go, I think even the retail edition, which I think was what basically I reviewed originally, because I only had the review copy that he sent to me, was very nice. I mean, the price of board games has gone up. I'd say it's equivalent. So yeah, I'd say it's probably worth it, but again, it's up to you. Sorry. Mystery says, we're not using them. China is one of the fastest growing economies because they can offer lots of manufacturing infrastructure. They would be worse off without it. Well, I would agree with you, but I still think their workers should be paid more. But I would also say that a lot of the reasons why we don't do things in the U.S., I meant to make this point earlier, is because China has a lot looser restrictions on plastics and other manufacturing processes that have to do with a lot of very harmful chemicals and additives to the air. In fact, it's become a huge problem for them. But we made laws, and I know this because most of the promotional products that we make or that we help to produce for my marketing company, the imprinting is done here, but the actual physical products themselves are made in China because they legally can't be made here in the U.S. because of manufacturing laws. But that's not good for China. They have a humongous environmental crisis in that country. Z isn't religious according to Tom and Sam. Well, okay. I would take their word for it. They know him much better than any of us. Not voting for Trump, but he seems to be the lesser of two evils versus crooked Hillary as he dreams her. Vote libertarian. Oh, I'm sorry, but you're making me angry. I understand Hillary Clinton's problems. I don't think she's a very good candidate. I think she's a bad candidate. I wanted Bernie. I wanted any number of other people. I would have taken Biden. I would have taken, I don't even remember his name. He's so forgettable. The only other person who actually mattered in the Democratic primary. I don't even remember his name. I would have taken that guy. I would have taken Nameless, okay? But to say that Trump is better than Hillary is insanity. It's insanity. The guy is crooked. Okay. I don't want to rant anymore in the board gaming Q&A about this. He's a monster. Okay, he's an idiot monster. There's no way that for all of her problems, you cannot objectively say that Hillary is worse than Trump. You can't. Not for the office of president, at least. I'm writing in Bernie. You're writing in Trump, basically. I'm getting the others pledge today. Very good. Whenever someone asks you why you have a wrist brace, you say you arm wrestled RoboCop. Thank you for your cooperation. If Trump is so much better than crooked Hillary, why doesn't he release his tax returns? There's a good point. Maybe he's actually the crooked one. Food for thought. Yeah, it's because no one wants to know that he's actually not broke, but worth way less than you would imagine. And he has a lot of financial ties to Russia that he doesn't want people to know about. And he's run more businesses than you would possibly suspect into the ground. Someone says, Trump is the lesser evil. I'm guessing you never listened to him trying to construct a coherent sentence. Is there Jews in Secret Hitler? Oh, no. No, there's not. Maybe you don't unbox fast enough? That's true. It was 14 minutes long. Typical Zionists. Oh, my goodness. Abigail. Are you planning on just buying the Kingdom Death update part of their Kickstarter, or will you buy another copy of the whole game? It depends on how much it is. I wouldn't mind getting another copy, personally. That's a good point, too. Secret Hitler takes place in the 1930s, before Hitler comes to power. It's showing how the Nazi Party came to power in Germany. As a new reviewer, what would you say your reviewer style is? For example, Rado is into two-player non-confrontational games, and Tom seems like medium-weight Ameritrash. I'm into that. I like multiplayer games. I like solo games. I like very thematic games. I do like Ameritrash games. I love deck-building games, simple card games. I'm not into two-player games much because that's probably the thing I get to review the least. In fact, I'm going to have to beg someone to peel off and play Luck Logic with me tonight, which is a two-player only collectible card game. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at. Thematic gamer. Sorry, this is already announced, but have you ever designed a game or had a game idea that seemed worth making? No and no. I don't really have an interest in being a designer, sadly. But if you want to, more power to you. Do it so that I don't have to. We have a bar called the Board and Brew that has games and beer and food. There you go. See? But you're offering everything. You're making it an all-inclusive place for people to come. So people who want board games are more likely to stick around and keep going there because they know there's other things that are being offered. People that are going there for beers and brew can go there and be like, oh, board games. Never even thought about that. We don't have to talk to each other anymore. Yes! What makes CSI, Cool Stuff Inc. so successful? What could they improve? Low prices, huge selection. They could improve themselves on offering more mass market stuff, I suppose, but I don't think they would necessarily have to. Right now, I think it's just promotion. A lot of people still don't know about them, and they probably should. A lot of people prefer to go to Amazon. I used to go to Amazon. Cool Stuff is better. They're just better. I mean, the only thing you can say that Amazon has the edge on is their prime shipping, but then again, if you get a large order at Cool Stuff, then you don't have to worry about shipping. Guys, we're coming to the end here, so I'm trying to answer these quickly. If board games, video games, and movies, and TV, and manga, and anime disappeared from the face of the earth, what activities will occupy your free time? Oh, you didn't like my answer before? I would probably just read. I really need to. You didn't put books there, did you? You put manga, but I would read books. I would love to get back into reading fantasy and science fiction novels. No, your question didn't disappear. I got it. The CSI question. Have you played games from the Metal Gear series? I only played the original Metal Gear. I think I played the sequel on NES, and then I played the first Metal Gear Solid, and I thought they were fine. Best Love Letter themed version? The only one I decided to keep was Adventure Time Love Letter. I liked that one. I thought it was cute. Had one different rule, which is that if you get Finn and Jake together, you win, which I thought was really cool. Best game of the year so far? I'm not going to say that, but you'll know by the end of the year. Have you checked the Essen release list? Anything interesting? No, but I'll be doing my top 10 anticipated games of Essen soon-ish. Hey, look, I caught up the questions anyways. Cool, we're going to end it soon. Let me just answer these last couple. Since Games Workshop got back into board games, what's been your overall thoughts about their efforts? Do they have a future as a board game developer? Yes, but it's a future with growing pains, right? So the problem is Games Workshop, by their very nature, wants to... Right now, what they want to do is link their board games into their miniatures lines, which is their big moneymaker, and therefore their board games are having to include incredibly high-quality miniatures that still need to be assembled, and therefore you can swap them into their miniatures lines. But because of that, the barriers of entry are incredibly high. The price, the amount of effort you need to put into playing it, and just the theme and getting into the theme. And so they're going to need to make a decision. Are they going to keep going that way? If they do that way, there will be people like me who will buy them, and others will just not. On the other hand, they may make the decision that, well, if, on the other hand, we decide to make games like the ones that Fantasy Flight was putting out in our name, that are more accessible, that are cheaper, that don't necessarily have to have components that can be swapped into our miniatures lines, and we can offer them at half the price, we could be more successful. If they decide to accept that premise, I think you're going to see them become a huge board gaming company, and not just a miniatures company. But that's not even remotely there yet. And Games Workshop, I don't have the visceral hate for them, or any hate really, that other people do, because I kind of missed most of what annoyed people. I was not really into the gaming hobby at that point. But right now, their reputation and what they have done is that they make really poor business decisions in a lot of cases. And so I don't necessarily have a strong hope that they will do that, but who knows? And okay, a couple more. We have a couple of places that have board gaming themes, restaurants and such. My issue with them is exactly what you stated. They're about the business, so they're about the business, so there's not a lot of room for games, which defeats the purpose. For example, a lot of these places have 2x2 tables, which is really shitty. Yeah, look, it's got to be a harmonious thing, right? So you need to offer various services, but you can't just say, well, there's tables, so you should be able to play games. But that's because a lot of people who start off these businesses aren't actually gamers themselves. They just said, oh, wait a minute, board gaming can bring in more people? Well, let's do it. But they didn't prep themselves for that. But that's why I'm giving advice more to people who want to start a cafe. And just say, if you build the place with both types of customer bases in mind, you can be successful. And also, location, location, location. Okay, this will be my last question. How do you think your superhero show on the channel will differ from the anime list, which you said was relatively unsuccessful? I like the anime top 10 personally. Well, this won't be a top 10. I mean, it'll just be a weekly thoughts and discussion thing. I think it will do better. It probably won't do very well. It's a vanity project. It's a vanity project, and it's a project that a segment of my fans want to see, and therefore I'm more empowered to do it. It'll be fun. I hope it'll be fun. I like the idea of doing something weekly because it gives me more impetus and focus, and it keeps me on track. So we'll see what happens. But I don't have high expectations for it. I have an expectation that I'll have a lot of fun doing it. And my idea, same thing that Howard Stern always said, even though I'm not a fan of his anymore, but he always said, I wanted to do the stuff that I wanted to do, and I just hoped that the fans would come along for the ride, and that's what I'm doing here. So we'll see how it goes. But hey, I couldn't do any of this without you guys' support, including this Q&A, so thank you so much. We're going to end it here. But I had a fantastic time, as I always do. I love my Q&As. Even when I'm way behind on all my other work, I still try to make sure I can do these because I love all of you guys and girls so much. So hey, politics aside, I know it's a dark time in America. There's still a lot to love about this country and a lot to love about your friends and neighbors. So go out and have fun this weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Take it easy. Take a rest. Take a break. Play some games. And we'll see you next week. Take care.